presence of the Lord in our lives is something that we rarely talk about anymore, because when we think of the idea of God, we think of the idea of some transaction with which we can get something that we want. But in truth, relationship with God is not about transaction, it's about transformation. And to that end, I want to argue today in our time together that there is a great deal of credit and glory that is due to God for the things that we accomplish in life that we don't always give God credit for. I want to argue today that a fruitful, and if you want to say successful life, ought to stem out of having our relationship with God as the centrality of our lives, having God in the center. And when our relationship with God is in the center, it then influences everything else we do. That in fact, God is not in a box somewhere, but rather God is in the center of our lives. God is not just a category or a tentacle somewhere as an offshoot of who we are, but rather our relationship with God is literally at the center of our lives. And because our relationship with God is at the center, we then are able to accomplish great things. And if we live this way, then I want to suggest that God deserves God's glory. You know, my mind goes to a little scripture in 1 Samuel chapter 7. At this point in time, the children of Israel have gone through cycles with the Philistines where they have been in battle. They've been through a season where they had lost the Ark of the Covenant. They have now recovered the Ark, and ironically, though they have recovered the Ark, they are still in mourning. Maybe it's because they recognize that having the Ark isn't always the same as having God. And that if we ever mistake God for what God gave us, then not only can we lose what God gave us, but even if we recover what God gave us, it doesn't necessarily bring us the joy and fulfillment that actually having God at the center will give us. They pray, Samuel seeks God's help, and in the midst of it, the Philistines seek to attack, and God rescues the children of Israel from the attack. And in the midst of it, Samuel grabs a stone and simply writes on that stone, Ebenezer. It means stone of help. And Samuel declares that up to this time, the Lord has helped us. That is so interesting. Not the ark, not the army, not the artillery. He says up to this time, it is the Lord who has helped us. I want to suggest to you today and for the rest of this week that if you look back over your journey close enough, you will realize that the real reason you have accomplished the victories you have has not been because of the resources you have or the tangibles in your life that we may tend to value. That in fact, it is the Lord who has helped us. To that end, each of us ought to have some stone, some Ebenezer, some moment of cognizance, some awakening in our mind where we are able to reconcile that if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, we don't know where we'd be. Now, I know somebody is saying, well, Reverend, this sounds great, but I don't need God to accomplish great things in my life and that I'm able to accomplish, victory on my own. In fact, I don't even really have a relationship with God. I want to argue back to you that it's not that God hasn't been working in your life. It may just be that you haven't given God the credit. That you may foolishly think that your intellect and your willpower and all of these things that are surrounding you are the sole reason why you're winning. It's not true. Whether we acknowledge God or not, the reality is that God is working behind the scenes, pulling the strings, making things work together for us. And so my challenge to you today is to put God at the center, give God God's credit, and acknowledge that up to this time, the Lord has helped us. And why is that important? Because if the Lord has helped me up to this time, then I'm pretty confident that the Lord will help me in the time to come. Lord, you have been our help in ages past, and we trust that you will help us in the days to come. Lord, whether our days feel up or feel down, the one constant we have is that you are with us. Even if we're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, we fear not because you are with us. God, today and this week, our desire is to give you your credit, to acknowledge that the reason we have won, the battles we have won has not been because of who we are or what we have or the resources that we possess. It has been that up to this time, the Lord has helped us. Keep on helping us, and we'll keep giving you glory. In Jesus' name, it is so. This is your momentum. What are you going to do?